A half-century ago, 1962, the year of my birth, American author John Steinbeck, accompanied by his dog, Charley, set off for a trip around the United States in search of America. 50 years later, that journey is reimagined. Only this is my van, my dog, and my adventures. I'm Logan Crawford, and this is MonsterLand. I begin my adventure the same way Steinbeck did, crossing the Long Island Sound from New York to Connecticut. As I begin my journey from Port Jefferson, New York, I feel as though not much has changed in the last 50 years or so, and starting my trip on a ship somehow seems appropriate, even though I'm not traveling to a distant shore. It's 4th of July weekend, and my destination is Vacationland, Maine, Bar Harbor to be precise. And from my research, Bahaba, as the New Englanders call it, is an all-American town. Or at least it's a kind of America that people of the United States and even the world want to retreat to when it's time for vacation. It's an America where the country's birthday is celebrated with a parade, a blueberry pancake breakfast in the park,
another one! You can't get away!
a seafood festival featuring lobster races,
2, 1, go!
and oh yes, Independence Day is celebrated with fireworks. But the road ahead is a long one. It's more than 400 miles to Bar Harbor. My mode of transportation other than the ferry? My van, Jones, a 1983 Volkswagen Vanagon Westphalia camper. A 4-speed manual with an air-cooled engine. That means no radiator, and so it's best to keep on moving. And no air conditioning, and that means on a hot summer weekend, it's best to keep on moving. Because the driver, me, and his companion are also air-cooled only. His name is Shadow, and he's an 18-month-old Hunt Terrier. A Hunt Terrier is sort of like a Jack Russell Terrier, except they're either black tan or black and tan. Shadow looks like the silhouette or shadow of a Jack Russell Terrier, and hence the name, Shadow. From Bridgeport to Bar Harbor, there's another 423 miles that Shadow, Jones, and I must travel. And while it is best to take the road less traveled, I do something that Steinbeck avoided at all costs. I drive the interstate from Connecticut to Maine because I'm hoping to make the drive in about 8 hours. Now, I'm going to spare you most of the drive. It was filled with tractor trailers and tolls and generic roadways, but it served the purpose. It gets me to Mount Desert Island, the 100-acre island that's home to Bar Harbor, just as quickly as possible. After nearly 400 miles of highway, Bar Harbor looks like an oasis. The waterfront is New England picture postcard perfect, from tall ships to lobster boats. And oh yes, I'm gonna have to do some lobstering here. This guy's only got one claw. He's what you call a cull, which means this guy isn't gonna be served as a steamed lobster. Instead, he's gonna be like lobster salad. Bar Harbor has lots of mom and pop shops. The village works hard to keep owner-operated businesses only in town. There are plenty of restaurants and even an Irish waterfront pub where I can grab a cool libation. How sweet it is. Town is packed. It is said 3 million people descend on MDI during any given summer. Bar Harbor is one reason why. Acadia National Park is another. 125 miles of hiking trails. And many of those trails are on gently sloping mountains that overlook the ocean, so you can only guess which ones Shadow and I chose.
A little help here. That's a little big for you, buddy.
The first national park east of the Rockies also features roadways with panoramic views. And then there's this. Sand Beach. It's a crescent-shaped beach that's sandy, not rocky like most MDI beaches, hence the name Sand Beach. And as you can see, it looks like something from the cover of the LL Bean catalog. The water is looking silvery, which means the sun is getting low in the sky, and that means it's getting late. Time to go. Setting up camp in the dark is no fun at all. Shadow, looks like it's gonna rain, so Daddy's gonna have to work fast, okay? Get this tent set up. I organize my camping supplies. Take a break here and there. Now we've got provisions. We've got blueberry soda. And I work quickly before the weather changes. Jones is what you call a pop-up. The roof literally pops up open to give you not only extra headroom, which I of course need, but an upper bunk, which on this trip, I don't need. As expected, the rain comes, but Shadow and I are safely inside Jones. A few sips of wine, a little light reading, and a short while later, and we see why Mainers say, don't like the weather? Just wait a minute. Yes, it's that changeable. The sunset is one of the prettiest I have ever seen. It feels like a warm welcome from a wonderful place. The three of us, Shadow, Jones, and I, watch the sun go down, and like good campers, we sleep when the sun sets and rise with it. Sunrise in Bar Harbor at the top of Cadillac Mountain in Acadia National Park is one of the biggest attractions around. People turn out in droves during the wee small hours of the morning to see what is billed as the earliest sunrise on the East Coast. And on the 3rd of July, sunrise is at, get this, 4:38 a.m. Yuck. And even though it's quite chilly on the top of the mountain, which fortunately you can drive up its 1,500 feet, the crowds gather anyway. Some wrapped in coats, others in blankets, and some are brave enough to wear shorts. The sky is perhaps prettiest before the sunrise, but at 22 minutes before 5 a.m., the golden rays creep up over the horizon, and as sure as the sun will rise, Mother Nature's show does not disappoint. Quite literally, the sky is the limit today. Anything I need to know when flying with you?
Yeah, you just want to stay off the controls, and I'll do all the flying, and otherwise just to enjoy the flight.
Before I even know what I'm getting into, I've signed up for a biplane ride. I know nothing about them other than that I saw the sign and it looked like fun.
this foot here.
Grab that handle up there.
As I do my awkward limbo into the plane, fear not. Even though I'm sitting in the front seat, I'm not flying Cover Girl, as the plane is called. Pilot Joe Keeney.
Mount this like this, I guess.
For reasons of balance, I'm told the pilot sits in the rear because his weight is a constant, while those of others, like myself, vary. Cover Girl, named such because it was featured on the cover of Aircraft Owner and Pilots Association magazine 3 years ago, has an engine that sounds a lot like Jones's. The comparisons are actually kind of reassuring. Jones never fails or stalls, even at the age of 30. And Cover Girl, built in the 1930s, seems just as reliable at age 70 plus.
This is Bar Harbor, all on my right side.
The two-wing or bi-wing design is one of the oldest. Orville and Wilbur built a similar such plane this way back when, and made this all possible. My road trip to rediscover America in my 1983 VW Vanagon with my dog, Shadow, has gone from land to air. And as I take an aerial sightseeing tour over Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park in Maine, pilot Joe Keeney is taking me for a ride in one of the earliest planes ever designed, a 1930s biplane. And he's just told me that aircraft like these, basically carrying an extra set of wings, can actually fly very little.
For me, this kind of plane is very safe because I'd imagine it has some gliding ability if you lost an engine, but it actually does have very little, really, okay.
So if he had to put it down in the event of, say, an engine failure, he'd have to do so very quickly. But I'm confident in Joe, and he's confident in his own skills, so I calmly continue shooting the best I can from this open-air cockpit, and oh yes, I do a little pontificating too.
There's something about being in the air that gives you an entirely different perspective. That makes you realize how beautiful Earth is, Mother Nature is. It's hard not to sound cliche, but it's spectacular. And we're making our approach now.
I tuck my body and head to one side so Joe can better see the runway.
Yeah, we got a big crosswind right now.
The crosswind is the challenge, one of many Joe faces as he successfully lifts off and lands on about 7 trips a day during the summer.
Oh, that worked out good. That was great. Smooth landing.
Back on terra firma now.
This is awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, definitely.
You coming in or going out? I'm going to go out right now. Can we pop out with you? Yep. Thanks.
Dennis Meehan is a lobsterman.
Dennis Meehan Trap right here.
It's early in the season,
You know, these are all short, you can kind of tell.
And they get tossed back in?
Yeah, they get tossed.
but Dennis and his school teacher daughter Iris, who works with him during summer vacation, are looking for lobsters.
I'm the stern person.
You're the stern person. Does that mean you're mean that you're a stern person?
No, that means I'm in charge of all the baiting, so I bait all the bags.
Lobstering, from what I learned from Iris and Dennis, sort of works like this. You bait the traps.
This is herring.
Okay. So that you could eat this if you wanted to?
I guess you could.
But of course, the captain advises against it. It's been in the sun for quite a while. And then you drop the traps.
I got to be careful when I'm tossing this over that I don't get caught up in this rope, because if it gets wrapped around my leg or something, or worse, even my neck, I'm going over too. And Dennis doesn't want to have to use a hook to drag me out of the water.
Go, go.
By the way, there's a fourth party on the boat this day besides Dennis, Iris, and me, and that's Hunter, Iris's pet, a 10-month-old Bernese mountain dog who's just getting his sea legs.
This is only his second time on the boat.
He's doing good.
He's doing really well.
I think Iris just corrected my English. School teachers. Anyway, back to lobstering and the lesson I'm giving you. You bait the traps, you drop them in the water, and then you haul up the traps that Dennis and Iris set days earlier.
Now that guy looks big in there. That's a keeper. This is a haul so far. This is what we've got so far. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keepers. We've only pulled up about 2 or 3 traps so far, so more is coming.
Dennis adds, we hope more are coming, and I continue dreaming.
Also some melted butter and some corn on the cob, blueberry pie, and blueberry ale is coming as well.
Okay, before I heat up the pot and ready the condiments, we've got some work to do.
Okay, but this is probably a shore.
Okay, now for the next part of our lobstering lesson, banding the claws of the catch before they're sold to market.
Just banded my first lobster. I'm not too good with these though.
Dennis has been working the water for a long time.
30 years fishing. I scalloped and I lobstered, and scalloping kind of died out here, so everybody got into lobster.
And he's a man who's got his priorities straight. He loves his family, the sea, his work, and of course, Bar Harbor. And the best part is, Dennis says, the people. And I say he and Iris are proof of that. Acadia National Park is where you'll find unchanged, unspoiled America. Mount Desert Island has been preserved in large part because most of it is a national park and almost all of it is dog-friendly. Many of the trails are easy to traverse, but sometimes a small pup might encounter some challenges.
Okay, we've been hiking for about 40 minutes now, and Shadow's getting kind of tired. And since I didn't pack a doggy bolé, I think I'm gonna have to carry him up.
Back on his way now as we near the summit. Hey, it's time to have a little fun.
This is kind of loose. I'm not sure how good doggy cam is gonna work, but we'll give it a shot.
For the people who work.
4th of July in Bar Harbor starts with a blueberry pancake breakfast in the park.
Here, more. Take more.
I get my breakfast, and yes, it tastes like old-fashioned goodness. It tastes the way America is supposed to feel on its birthday, delicious. And Shadow gets some of the deliciousness too. Hey, what's a birthday party without music? Without marchers, without a parade? Bar Harbor 4th of July marches on with a seafood festival featuring what else? Lobster.
Oh, it's hot, really hot.
Now comes lobster time. I don't know, this guy looks kind of familiar. He might be one that Dennis caught. Ah, boiled lobster, fresh from the sea with melted butter. Mwah! Perfect. Under a tree in the park. And for dessert, strawberry shortcake. And for entertainment,
All the TV cameras are moving in.
those cameras are jockeying for position to see the lobster races. That's right, I said lobster races.
2, 1, go!
50 years ago, author John Steinbeck set out to rediscover America to see how the U.S. had changed during his half-century of life. 50 years later, this is my trip, and my mission is to witness how America has changed, or perhaps didn't, since I was born. I'm making the trip in my 1983 VW camper with my dog Shadow, and our first stop is Bar Harbor, Maine on the 4th of July. A seafood festival featuring lobster races, lobster races is part of the fun.
2, 1, go!
Albeit slow-moving fun. People place bets, and proceeds, aside from a small jackpot for those who correctly predict win, place, or show, goes to charity. And eventually, there's a winner. Winners and losers get tossed back into the cooler, and I never ask, but I do wonder, do they set the winner free? It's hours now until the main event, the huge fireworks show over the harbor, and there's still some time to explore more of Mount Desert Island. The ground at the visitor center at Acadia National Park is large. The pace is hectic, but Shadow and I find a rocky ledge to relax on before it's time for the main event. Later in town, they strike up the band. The band plays on as the crowd gathers down near the waterfront for the show that takes place in the sky once darkness falls. The sun is quite literally setting on the first leg of my road trip to rediscover America. That began from Long Island, New York in my VW camper with my dog Shadow. Our first stop, Bar Harbor, sometimes called Bark Harbor because it's really dog-friendly. We've flown in a vintage biplane, caught lobster in Seal Harbor.
He's an active little fellow, that guy.
Yeah, kind of short.
Yeah, tiny.
Went hiking in Acadia National Park. Come on, Shadow. And now, it's time for fireworks. The rocket's red glare. The bombs bursting in air. Gave proof on this night that the America that I grew up in has hardly changed in 50 years. At least not in Bar Harbor on the 4th of July. But who knows what my next stop will bring.